Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Mistakes Were Made. Today we are going to do our budget with me for the second pay period of May. So that means we are going to be covering the 16th through the 31st. And as usual, if you hear even the slightest bit of mayhem in the background, yes, it is Percy. All right, so what did I do with my... Oh, it's in my pocket. There we go. We've got our handy calculator here. And we are gonna get started. Let me zoom on in. There we are. I'm gonna start here with income, and Mr. M is at $1963.22. Something of note, this is going to be the first pay period that we have since, after being unemployed, that we will not be pulling anything out of the job loss cushion to cover my share of the income discrepancy. And what I think we're going to do is anything that I make from my part-time job, I'll put into my section, and anything from unemployment, I will put in the miscellaneous income section. If we are anticipating or know ahead of time that there is something else that would be attributed to miscellaneous income, maybe a bonus from Mr. M that's actually not part of his paycheck, then we will just lump those two together and put it in my space and put the other in here. Okay, so to that end, I did get my very first paycheck. It was very small because it only covered a couple of days for $143.50. And then we have two checks worth for unemployment, which ended up being $1,075.96. The buffer rollover expectation is $200.58. And let's see what that all comes to. 1963.22 plus 143.50 plus 1,075.96 plus 258. All right, that gives us $3,383.26. Okay, now we're going to move on. This is going to be the second of two payments for the mortgage, which is $875, and the second of two payments for my health care, which is $206.28. We'll move down here. We do know what the electric bill is going to be, and so that is $153.54. The gas bill hasn't come through just yet. We're going to use our generic summer minimum that we're doing for our utilities, which is $150. I fully expect that the actual cost is going to be much less than that. We are getting into warmer months, so we are not kicking that furnace on, even with it being at 61 degrees. So those costs tend to dwindle dramatically. This is a month that we have our garbage bill, because it does go every other month. So we're looking at $79. Comcast is our internet, $104. And then our cell phone bill is $91. So we've got $875 plus $206.28 plus $153.54 plus $150 plus $79 plus $104 plus $91. Okay, that puts us at $1,658.82 in expenses. We will subtract that from our income amount of $3383.26, and that leaves us with $1724.44. Okay, second pay period, that means we do have a line item specifically budgeted for emergency fund. It is only $25, but every bit helps. The buffer is going to be 200, so in total we're looking at 225 here. We'll add that in to our running total, which brings us to $14.99.44. Okay. All right, next are going to be our sinking funds. We have AAA, which is $13. Birthdays, which is $15. We're going to skip car maintenance because we don't normally fund it during the second pay period, but it is also one of those that we have determined we need to be setting a little bit of extra aside, so it gets some of our at the end of the budgeting process money, so I'm going to leave it blank for now. Christmas gets $25. Clothing gets $10. Costco gets $100. Garden and Yard gets $30. And well, when we get to it, I'll speak on that. Gas gets $100. Gifts gets $5. Groceries gets $200. Health gets $15. Now, health and household, which also gets $30, are also ones that get extra, as does pets. We're going to just put the generic amount, the budgeted, standard budgeted amount in here, and then if there's any extra, we'll just put it on the side. Licenses gets 11, pets gets 125, prime gets 12, and taxes, oops, I'm getting off the screen here, gets 200. Okay. If you noticed a little gap, I had to have a little talking to with Mr. Percy. I am certain he took none of it to heart. All right, so let's add up what we're working with here. Plus 12, oops, no, 13 plus 15 plus 25 plus 10 plus 100 plus 30 plus 100 plus 5 plus 200 plus 15 plus 30 plus 11 plus 125 plus 12 plus 20 gives us $711 total. Now, these numbers tend to not shift just for the budgeted items very often, so we can usually expect $701 in the first pay period and $711 in the second pay period, unless it's a month where we're going to have a magic month for groceries, in which case we would add $100 to one of those for the month. Anyway, we are going to subtract $14.99.44 from that. Oops. That's the result, for a total of $788.44. We're going to just take that number and rewrite it over here. And with that, got my spending, $30. Which means we are down to $758.44. And then last but not least is $100 for the yard cleanup. Which drops us now to $658.44. All right, perfect. All right, if you've been following along, you know, if you happen to be new, when or if we have money left over at the end of budgeting what our expected costs are going to be, we have determined we are going to divvy this money out to some specific goal items, things that we have determined to be priorities that we want to pursue. Previously, when we were working on debt, we did utilize extra money to push our debt progress forward. We are in the very unexpected, this quickly and appreciated position at this point to be debt free except for the house. So we have a lot more flexibility on how we can utilize this extra money. So first and foremost, we have mortgage, then we have the emergency fund, that is an F, and long-term goals. And then we have our sinking fund. And of those, we have the car maintenance, we have health, we have household, and we have pets. Then we have our fun category, which that should have been moved over just a smidge. And then we'll just put right over here the buffer rollover amount. Okay, we already know what that's going to be, the buffer rollover. It's always going to be whatever change is left. So 44 cents. And I have done the math on this already, so I'm not going to whip out the calculator. But again, for anybody that is new, we have determined what percentages we want to use for these items. The mortgage gets 30% of any money that we have left over. Emergency fund, long-term goals, and sinking funds get 20% of whatever money is left over, and then that last 10% will go to fun. It is our transitional bucket, so if we need to, because of math purposes, need to adjust any of these up or down, then fun will be the one that we adjust to make sure it fits the money that we actually have available. So for this point, mortgage, we are looking at $197 for the long-term goals, emergency fund, and sinking funds. So we didn't have to make any, adjustments. We have $132. And for that 132, it means each of these is going to receive $33. And then last but not least, the fun category is going to get $65. Okay, so that's what we're looking at as far as this pay period. Some people might say, why are you breaking things up like this? And in particular, the sinking funds, you're only putting $30 to these. That's not a whole lot, but the thing I would say is, first, keep in mind this is just one pay period in a month, so we have 2 of those, and every little bit helps. Even if this was only $100 and we were doing the calculations, that would still be $30 going as an extra payment to our mortgage. That would be $20 being put into these things. And yes, that may mean we're only giving $5 to each of those, but it's $5 more than we were putting in there previously, and little things build up to big things. So there's that. I did have a question that came through. Let me kind of zoom out just a wee bit, that I thought would be good to address, on here, just in case anybody else had a similar question about it. And that question was, do we budget Mr. M spending, or is it handled prior to payroll distribution? And the answer to that is yes, to both of those. We do budget all of our costs, but we do not put his spending into what we Percy, into what we disclose on the channel. And that is because he has asked to keep anything that is specific to him, personal and off the channel. And I absolutely respect his privacy. This is not a channel that he is overly involved in. It is very much my baby. So I am not going to do anything that he is uncomfortable with. And from the beginning, you may have noticed that we have kept most of the financial stuff that we talk about specifically to those items that are joint items. And he's totally fine with us doing that. We didn't really start to touch on anything that was very specifically in his name until after we had cleared all of our joint things. And even then, it was in relation to the fact that we were pulling money from our joint account to help pay down the debts that were in his name only. So there's that part. And as far as the distribution part of it, yes, what he does is when his paycheck is generated, he has it set up so a specific amount goes to his, oh boy, I've got a cat that is really, really determined to be on my last nerve. He has it set up so that he has a specific amount that goes into his individual checking account, and then the remainder comes into our joint account. And we touched on this just a little bit when we were dealing with the debt for the auto loan, because he has his standard payments, and we have not made any changes to that process, even though we have paid that loan off, mainly because he still had some car maintenance stuff that he needed to get done, and the cost for those was outstripping what we were able to really save in the car maintenance bucket. So it just made sense to leave things as is, so that the money that he had previously been putting towards paying the car loan would be augmented with what we are saving in the car maintenance as part of the joint budget. Now, I do know how much he's spending. I do know how much he's allocated. It is on our spreadsheets. It's just not something that we disclose on camera. So the other reason why I did want to bring that up is because we are going to be seeing a change along those lines. He has made the adjustment to his pay because we have gotten through all of the car maintenance stuff. Well, all of the car maintenance stuff that we know that we needed to get done has been done. And so he was in the position to now make adjustments. So we should be seeing a change in the amount that we are going to be regularly seeing for his pay. I'm not entirely sure how it might manifest. The way his work does stuff, because he is third shift, there's different incentives and all sorts of things, shift differentials and everything like that. I don't know if it will be a case of, well, I think it would just be a math thing. So if he's previously was getting $100 and he says, okay, now I'm only going to have $50, then this number should just bump by $50. But what we're going to do is we are going to wait and see. And I would say it's probably going to take about 2 or 3 paychecks just so that we can be sure of what to expect. And then we will set a new base minimum of expectation for what his paycheck is. And that is important because whatever the baseline for his paycheck is going to affect how much of a discrepancy there is between our costs and what we have available to put towards them, and thus how much my share needs to pay. And of course, if that gets reduced, then that means the criteria, at least on the financial side of things, that I need to follow for any jobs that I am applying to will be a little bit loosened. There will be more opportunities that I could pursue. Additionally, it would mean that the money that I currently am bringing in for the part-time job would go further to meeting whatever that discrepancy is. Oh boy, I don't know if you can hear that, but that's, yes, Percy in the background doing who knows what. And so it would mean that we would have less reliance on unemployment in order to meet the required amount that we need to do our budget, which is a little less pressure on me, because then if there happens to be some kind of issue where I don't meet the requirements, or if this process for me to find, full-time employment goes longer than unemployment is allocated, we would still potentially be able to cover our costs, or at least cover them in a significant way, and what we would need to pull from the job loss cushion would be much, much smaller. So this is a definitely an important milestone, I guess you could call it, and it's an opportunity for us to reassess what we're doing with the budget. Once we know exactly how much that increase is, it could mean that we have a little bit of wiggle room to be able to up some of the costs that we want to do here. It may mean we want to adjust some of the percentages we have. It may mean we're just going to, keep everything as is, and whatever the income left over ends up being just means that these will get boosted a little more. But basically, it'll be an opportunity. We will have to wait to see kind of what that opportunity means. I'm anticipating the timeline will probably be the first pay period of June would be the first time we will have that extra income available. It's really going to depend on how quickly his payroll, his works payroll department makes the change that he requested. So, we'll just kind of have to wait and see. The only other thing on that is once we kind of have an idea of what we can expect for his pay and we create that new minimum, we're going to follow the same process that we did before. And if he receives any paychecks that are less than that new minimum, we will adjust the minimum down to the nearest $25 below whatever that lowest paycheck was. And I think that is it. What I'm going to do, though, I am going to put $33 in here. I'm going to put $33 here, $33 there, $33 for pets. And what else did we have? Long-term goal. We're going to put 132 right there. Extra mortgage. We're going to put 197, and emergency fund. We have 132, so we're going to just pop that right over here on the side for tracking purposes. We don't really have a category for fun, and because this process is a little transitory, we could change it at any time. We're not going to adjust our sheet to accommodate it. We're just going to kind of work with what we have. So we'll just leave the fun option here down at the bottom. Oh, and then we had rollover 44 cents. Alrighty, so I think that is it. The only other update that I have is regarding the yard cleanup. We will talk about it a little bit more when we do our budget recap for the first pay period of May, but we are anticipating, we are anticipating that this standard $100 transfer is going to put us over the $2,500 mark, which was our goal for the yard cleanup. In talking with Mr. M, we made the decision that while we are trying to bring people in to give us bids on, taking care of the area that needs to be taken care of, however long that particular process ends up being, we will continue to put money towards the yard cleanup instead of starting on a new category. If we happen to get, a number that is less than what we have saved, then we can absolutely shift over to something new and potentially even take anything over the $2,500 and then attribute it to whatever new category we decide to start. Of course, if we have determined that the bids all come up, higher than what we have saved, then we will at that point make the decision on whether we will continue to fund this or take a temporary hiatus, find something else that might be a little bit smaller to fund, and then go back to funding yard cleanup. That's still a little bit up in the air, but okay. That is it. I don't have any other updates for this particular video. We usually keep most of our updates as far as like unemployment, the job, those sorts of things for our budget recaps. So that's where we will leave that. I do appreciate you watching. I hope, you get something out of this, whether it's me complaining about my cat's antics or just, seeing how somebody handles the money that they're getting in and the choices that they make on how they want to pursue their goals. Whatever you get out of this is great with us. If you find something that is inspirational or that you want to try for yourself, and especially if you do find it successful for your needs, that is very gratifying. I'm always open to anybody that has questions, concerns, suggestions, things like that. So, please feel free to note those down below. And I hope we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.